Hi, this is Rex, and welcome back to The Golden Storyteller, the storytelling show, cross media. We do podcasts, YouTube, live stream, and we talk about stories from my hometown, Golden, and beyond. Well, today in this episode, I want to talk to you about this wonderful thing that's kind of a bad combination with teenagers, gunpowder, fireworks, and all kinds of things that go boom. Well, if you're watching this today on YouTube, you're going to see this picture here that we start off with pop-out rockets. And I think in another one of my stories, I actually talk a little bit about pop-out rockets. Well, I was born in 1965 and graduated from high school at Golden in 1983. So most of these antics took place in about 1978 through about 1982, 83 as teenagers. So at that time in Colorado, fireworks were illegal. But of course, everybody had an older brother, or we drove up to Wyoming, and in Wyoming, they were not illegal. So you could buy illegal fireworks for Colorado in Wyoming and transport them back into the state. And so it was a little bit of mischief that we started with. Well, those who have played with fireworks and those that go boom, so anything that explodes, as 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old kids, you do some kind of interesting things with them because it's kind of fun. It's kind of experimental, and things are a little bit dangerous. So even though we did a lot with just the typical black cat little brick fireworks, most of the things that we did were with pop-up rockets. So start off and tell some stories about pop-up rockets. We used to go up there and get them by the droves, and I mean literally in the grosses, and we would always count how many grosses. So my good friend Nick and well, there were five of us. We called ourselves the Poor Four and Warren because our friend Warren, his dad was an attorney, and the rest of us came from families that were pretty much blue collar, and we didn't have money in today's world. So the Poor Four, we would always get around with the fireworks and do kinds of crazy things. So pop-out rockets and grosses of pop-out rockets became pretty much a summer activity for us while we were in Golden. Now, one of the things we discovered is that you could light a pop-out rocket and shoot it into water. You could watch it explode. So one of the things we used to do would be hop the fence over at the Golden swimming pool. Now this Golden swimming pool used to be on 10th Avenue, right by where the library is next to the tennis courts. Well, they've since torn that down and moved the pool over to the recreation center that's basically down by Lions Park. But before that, the pool was an elevated pool with it was in the ground, but the pool was elevated that the dirt was built up around it. So we'd walk up to the edge of the fence and hop over the fence, and we take our pop-out rockets and we would shoot them into the pool and watch them explode underneath the water. It was pretty slick. Well, the problem with that is that we're trespassing. So sometimes we'd have to be looking for the Golden Police to not give us a hard time in our minds and keep us from trespassing in their minds. So that was one place we did fire pop rockets. Just over to the east of that, literally right at the edge of the parking lot, is the footbridge that currently is still in place there along Water Street and 10th Avenue, where the footbridge crosses over Clear Creek. And so we would also get up on the bridge and shoot the pop-out rockets down into the Clear Creek and then watch them explode. But they wouldn't be really under us. It would be further down because the water and the current would be carrying the pop-out rocket. So you'd see these little flashes and explosions in the water underneath the water and as they were going trailing down the creek. Another thing, and I hate to admit this, that we got to be pretty mischief with is pop-out rockets in the mines, dorms, and apartments. And so we kind of had this cat and mouse game going on all the time, and we'll talk about some of these others around the Colorado School of Mines campus with the campus security police and the Golden Police. But we literally would open up the doors to some of the apartment buildings and shoot pop-out rockets down there, or throw a brick of fireworks in there, or have pop-out rocket firefights on the Colorado School of Mines campus. Or the other favorite thing to do would be to sit upon a hill above where the Colorado School of Mines security office was at the time, and shoot Papa rockets out over their parking lot. So it's amazing we got out of youth without getting a lot of trouble. We really never got caught in that, but that was Papa rockets. Oh, and then one more thing, up along South Table Mountain, we at the back of our buddy Warren's place, there was the ditch, the Farmer's Highline ditch that ran along the South Table Mountain. We would shoot the Papa rockets in the ditch and watch them explode, or in the wintertime, we would shoot them down the metal tubing section of the ditch and listen to them explode, and then the echo from that. So we started off with Papa rockets. Sometimes Papa rockets have firefights in the backyard and that kind of things. One time we got it in the house. I've talked about that before, but it all began with Papa rockets. Well, just like anything else, there's always step technologies. Maybe sometimes there's step drugs or step technologies. Well, we kind of got bored with Papa rockets. So we were kind of into things that went boom and flew and do that kind of stuff. So Nick was a pretty good builder of Estes rockets. And we started getting the idea, what if we made our own Papa rockets, except ones that really went boom? So we used to go get the Estes motor rockets, and these rockets were graded by the payload, the size of the rocket, the weight, and then the altitude. And some of these would shoot a rocket 1,000, 1,500 feet in the air. So amazing, these engines would take it up. So we became our own engineers. So we had our little NASA pad of our own. Generally, we were firing these off from the open space area behind Nick's house, or even just in his backyard. So the basic components of our own handmade Papa rockets, we would get dowels, wooden dowels. So you kind of see that stick there pile if you're watching this on YouTube. And if you're not, go look at it. So we'd have a doweling rod, and then we would tape together one or more Estes rockets to the doweling rod. Then we were crazy, and I don't even know what made us think of this, and we're out of our mind thinking of this, was we would take the expended CO2 cartridges used in BB guns, because, of course, kids of our age living in western half of the United States, you got to have a BB gun. So we would take the spent CO2 cartridges and fill those with black powder. Now, Nick's mom was, I don't even remember how we got away with all this, but we used to pool our money, and she'd take us down to Old West Arms out on Colfax, and we would buy canisters of black powder. So we would fill the spent CO2 canisters, which you can see there's an array of them here, and then that was our payload. We were pretty good with the Estes rocket launcher launching systems with the wires and the little control panels and stuff, but a lot of times we just put our own fuses on them. So the fusing was a little bit sophisticated if you think about it, because there had to be a fuse to light the engine to get the rocket off the ground, and then there was a fuse to the payload, the bomb of the CO2 cartridge. Now, we weren't very bright, and of course, kids don't think this way. But if any of those CO2 cartridges would have exploded on the ground, we all could have been killed from the shrapnel from the cartridges. But we didn't think about that. No, no, no. Of course we're going to launch these into the sky and watch them go really boom. And of course there's never going to be a mishap. Well, ask the scientists at NASA. There's always mishaps. I don't know how many of these we shot off, but it was tons. We made our own rockets. We had our own little production facility. Excuse me. And we spent a lot of time building these rockets and shooting them off in the backyard. And it was amazing to watch them go off when they're successful, because they got, way high in the sky, some of these well over 1,000 feet. So when they did explode, we were pretty safe from the shrapnel. But heaven help us, and knock on wood, we were lucky that we didn't kill ourselves when something went haywire. Well, of course, just like anything else, one thing leads to another. The next thing we were thinking about was pipe bombs. Now, we would go down to the junkyard, and here's a picture of the pipe bomb, and this is the big kahuna one we built, but let me give you some accolades here. This is a picture of G.H. Stewart. Now, G.H. Stewart had a junkyard and the coal yard, which I've talked about in my coal sacking story. This is from Getty Images and used with permission. We're not marketing this anywhere. But this is G.H. Stewart, and he had to be in his 80s at the end of his business there. And he had a junkyard and he had everything you could think of. So pieces of pipe and all those types of things were easily found, virtually cost free to us because my dad knew GH and I did work with him. I sacked coal and stuff. So we'd go down to his junkyard and take a look at this picture. It's priceless. He was an amazing man. He could find use for anything and he had just about one of everything. But we go get pipe. And again, now I had a welder at the house. So pretty bad combination when you've got welders and drill presses and plugs, cap plugs for these and black powder. Well, we built several small pipe bombs, handfuls of them, and we would take them out into the open space area along Tucker Gulch Creek and explode them. So one year over the Christmas holiday, we decided we were going to take and build a real big bomb. Well, we took a T-joint like this, a cast iron, cast iron would be steel T-joint like this. Now, this is smaller than the one we actually used. The one we had was a 3-inch. So we had plugs. We found plugs, found two and bought one plugs for each of the ends. So we basically had an encased sealed container made out of steel pipe. So what we did is we took the plug-in plugs and I welded them closed. So that way we screwed them in. So they would screw in just like you'd screw in a light bulb and screw in the cap, the end plug. And then I welded all 3 ends closed. Then we drew a hole in the middle of it so we could fill it with black powder and then put a fuse in it. I don't know what we were thinking. It's absolutely crazy to think this. And by today's standards, we would all go to jail. Our parents would be accused of child abuse. I mean, it would just be terrible. Nobody would ever let us get away with this, but things were a little different back then. So we made this pipe bomb, the 3-inch T-bomb. And when we were down at Old West Arms, we were able to buy fuse. And we could get fuse in any length we wanted, and we could also get waterproof fuse. So if I remember correctly, you bought the fuse by the number of feet per and how many seconds. So many inches mean so many seconds and stuff. So we ended up buying ourselves several feet of fuse of waterproof fuse, and we calculated we'd need about 2 minutes to get away from it. So we put a 2-minute fuse in it. Stuck the fuse down in there, well, filled the pipe bomb with the black powder, stuck the fuse down in there, and then took clay to seal it so it would have a seal so the power wouldn't come out and it would seal the air. So over the holiday, Christmas holiday time, there along Highway 93 in Golden, there was a place where we used to call it 93, where the teenagers and young adults would go and do keg parties and beer drinking parties. So we wanted to have our own New Year's Eve big boom. Well, we were a little bit afraid at this point in time about hurting someone because we started to think through the fact that this projectile bomb wasn't going up in the air, it was going to be on the ground somewhere. So on New Year's Eve, there was a big party going up there. We were going to have a big boom celebration. So we took the pipe bomb, the 3-inch T connector pipe bomb, and we put it under a rock about the size, about 4 feet square across, if I remember correctly. And it had an edge under it that had been dug out. Maybe some animals were sort of taking shelter there. So we dug out the area from under that and we stuck the pipe bomb up underneath the rock. So there was snow on the ground. There's probably about 4 or 6 inches of snow. So we lit the fuse and we took off. And we ran and ran and ran and ran and ran. And it seemed like an eternity for those 2 minutes to go. And we finally took cover at least 150 yards away along the fence line at Nick's property where it stepped into the open space for Tucker Gulch there. And when it went off, there was a huge, and I mean huge, white flash, and then the explosion. And you could hear it all over Golden. Now, in Golden, being in the valley it is in, when something explodes that loud, the only thing I ever heard that's even close was the fireworks. You would hear it echo, so it would echo off the canyon, the South Table Mountains and the Front Range, and it echoed. So we were scared to death, and we didn't want to go back down there because we didn't want somebody to discover us and to turn us in. So we spent the night at Nick's, and the next day we went down there to see what happened. Well, the rock that we had put it under was pretty much gone, and there was a crater, probably about 18 to 24 inches deep, where the rock had been, and we could not find any pieces of the pipe, not one. So this thing absolutely exploded and exploded big. Well, when we found that and we couldn't find anything and we couldn't find any shrapnel pieces, we couldn't find any pieces of the bomb, we couldn't find the rock had been destroyed, we finally woke up and we decided that our pipe bomb days were over because we had basically gone as far as we wanted to go and risk it. But I'll never forget until the day I take my last breath of seeing that huge white flash, the thunderous boom, and the fear on our faces probably was incredible. That was probably the biggest thing to see. So that's my story coming from Golden at this point in time. Pyrotechnics, pipe bombs, black powder, pop bottle rockets, Estes rockets, CO2 cartridges. Oh my goodness, I don't know how we all survived to become adults. And so another story from our gang, the Poor Four and Warren from Golden. And until next time, be golden.